Have you ever felt stuck in your job or career? Do you fear change? Have you ever had the feeling that you don't know where your career is going or what comes next? Well, you're not alone. There's a lot of people out there right now that are faced with the same challenges. The good thing is that you could do something about that today. Stay tuned because in this raw and unfiltered conversation with Michelle Beato, she's going to walk you through some of the strategies and tactics that you could utilize today to be able to connect with people and maximize on the resources that are available to you. Morning.
Morning. How are you?
Good. How about yourself?
I am good as can be, right?
Of course, we're all going through the same BS right now, so
Yes, definitely. People are in all types of different spirits, but it's all right. We'll get through it.
definitely will. So where are you right now? Are you in Georgia or New Jersey?
Yeah. So I'm in Atlanta. Yeah, I moved here now. Oh my God, it's going to be 5 years in June since I moved.
How has that change been?
It's been interesting, but in a good way.
Yeah,
Georgia's very different than, where we come from. Well, no, you didn't. Did you live in New Jersey?
I did. I lived there for most of my life, really. And so now I'm in Ohio. So even Ohio is
Oh,
different,
okay.
obviously.
Yes. So same thing, I think that, where we were, it's very diverse, very, you have New York City. So I was born in Patterson, right outside New York City, and then grew up in Wayne, but kind of like then lived in Fair Lawn right before I moved here. But, I worked in the New York City for many years.
Hmm.
So, the diversity, the different people, the hustle and bustle. You definitely, when I moved down here, it was a interesting adjustment. It's just a little bit slower. People actually like enjoy their life here.
The same thing with Ohio. One of the things I recognize over here immediately is that people actually do take the time to enjoy life, right? And so the hustle
Yeah,
and bustle, like you said, which I
yeah.
think even with this pandemic, I don't know how it is in Georgia over there. How is it in Georgia with this pandemic right now?
Well, I mean, I think it's like the same everywhere. There's people that are panicked versus people that are just calm. People that just like everywhere, you have like that. I don't want to say a divide, but you have the people that are like, working from home, right? That still have jobs, right? Are employed and they're working from home. They have their kids at home or whatnot.
Mhm.
And some of them complain, some of them are okay with it. Then you have the workers that are on the front lines, right? The people that you see in the supermarkets, the people that you see out in the street still, they have a whole different set of problems, right? So I think it's just like a mixture of I try not to be on social media a lot, especially just for work, because you get all these conflicting opinions, people complaining, and in the grand scheme of things, I'm kind of like an optimist of like, listen, if you're healthy and especially if you're employed today, there's not a lot that you should be worrying about. Like there are people that are not healthy, not employed, so there's like, there's a big picture to look at. And sometimes like we forget that.
Yeah, yeah. I was having a conversation with a one of my. He was a colleague of mine when he was actually a client of mine. But I consider him a colleague just because our relationship was pretty good, and we were
Okay.
discussing how
And I'm
this.
having coffee, by the way. I'm having coffee like 10 times a day now, just so you know, because of these kind of coffee chats that I'm having. Just FYI.
It's funny. Let me introduce you real quick because obviously we're talking to Michelle. You say Enjoli, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, it's my middle name. Yeah, Michelle Enjoli. Yeah.
Okay, and then Beato, is that correct?
Yeah, Beato. Yeah. It's like
Beato.
the A is pronounced like an O. That's how I make it. Yeah.
All right, all right. So obviously you're a connector, storyteller, and believer of the amazing power of human connection can have on the life of people, both personally and professionally. You study journalism, and you have an insatiable curiosity for people, storytelling, and you love coffee. So that's why I wanted to just introduce you because you said, "Hey, you're drinking coffee."
Yep,
Uh,
for sure.
so I was talking to one of my previous clients, and I was asking him about the his business and his industry and the impact that it has had. Obviously we all want this stuff to go away. We all want to go back to normal. And to him, when we were at that 3.3 million people that have had unemployment, I told him that that number is going to go up. I saw that number going up just because of the what you just said, right? These people are just being panicked. People are getting laid off,
Hmm.
and right now it's obviously at 4.4% unemployment, which is a huge number. It still could go up, right? So I think this is why I think when I reached out to you, I know you're in that space that you connect people and career change. I think this one of the best times to actually consider a career, a career change or just
For
changing
sure.
something in your life is now.
Yep.
Um, so I think I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I'm assuming you do since you're nodding your head.
Yes. No, well, so I'm one of those people that believe in career change or just change in general. So, as a, as you saw from some of my notes on my bio, I started as a television producer, right? While I was still in college. And I did that, via connecting. But since then, I've done so many different things. They are all connected, but I've always been that person that believes in change. Like nothing is going to ever stay the same, right? The world is changing as we speak. And that's
Definitely,
why I kind of feel like there's a lot of people right now that, you know, the people that are, truly, truly suffering are those that, have a hard time with change. Like, I didn't expect none of us expected something like this big to happen, but I've always been ready for massive change. We went through it. You worked for Mercedes Benz as well. When they relocated their headquarters here 5 years ago, that was a massive change. I mean, not just for me, but for people that didn't come to Georgia, that had been there their whole lives. We went through 2008, right? Remember that
yeah, yeah.
recession in 2008, that caused change in my business and everything. So it's just like, I'm kind of, 9/11. I was in college in 9/11. I mean, talk about change for the first time ever. You kind of felt unsafe for a while. Things kind of shifted. So I've always, been a person I'm like a lot of other people. While we might not like all the change that happens, you have to get used to it. So I just figured out a way, just to make the best of it and be as prepared as possible for it, because it's gonna happen.
Yeah, one of the things I usually tell my clients. By the way, I don't have any clients anymore. The my business is going sidewall. That's why I started this.
But right now it is, but you will in the future.
Let's see, and that's why I started this podcast. But one of the things I used to tell my clients in the risk management space is that when they started to look at risk and say, "Hey, how can we manage something, whatever a threat, or whatever?" I was telling them, "Hey, just look at any experience that you've had in the past that you may have overcome. You probably didn't have any experience, but you did overcome." They're like, "Shit, oh, sorry, no, we're not cursing here, but." Um,
No, I get
but there was like, hey, that's true. We've gone through, as an example, a massive layoff, where we had to fire people, and we had to look at our processes and policies and revamp those. So kind of like what you said, we've gone through 9/11. We've gone through
Mhm.
in 2008, right? 2000, and also the 2008 crisis that we had. You may have also gone through some changes. So let's touch base on the Mercedes thing that you said, because were you working in Mercedes Benz during that time?
Yeah, so give you a little quick bit of like all the change that I've gone through. I started at Mercedes Benz in 2009, working for I don't know if you remember, but they used to have an in-house production studio in their basement of one Mercedes. They used to have like a production studio where they produced videos and print work and things like that for the marketing department.
I don't think
I
I was
started
allowed there.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and in the first building, it was like a totally different world. Imagine, corporate America, what you would normally expect to see. Then take an elevator down, and you have this awesome studio with different creative people. It was actually really, really cool to see that.
Okay.
So I started working there. Then 2 years later, started working directly for the marketing department in 2012, and then in 2015 was when the decision was made to move the headquarters. So that was the first big, massive. So like what I do today, like help mentor students and professionals, it kind of started there naturally because what happened was no one was expecting it, as you know. There were people that like their parents worked there, their grandparents worked there. You had generations of people that were working there. You
Yeah.
also had people that had been there their whole lives. So all of a sudden, this change happens, and people were like crying at their desks. I mean, there were people that had never done a resume since they graduated college.
Wow.
There was a lot of, anxiety. There was a lot of concern and a lot of worry. So I had to live through that for 6 months before I actually moved to Atlanta with the company. So, what was great though about Mercedes, and I'm not sure if you ever visited headquarters, like because what you were working at headquarters for a while, correct?
So I was in Montville for
Okay.
5 6 years, and then after that
Ah,
I went over to the field. So I was not there during that massive change. I was
okay.
actually in Ohio, but I've heard so many stories from people that it just sucked that they had to go through that pink slip. Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
no, it was a massive, yeah. It was no, it was pretty crazy that time. And the thing is though, I do have to say though that people banded together though, like in that time of crisis, it was such a strong community. So like people, I was helping people do resumes, other people were, connecting other people with jobs. There was a lot of, while it was a very stressful time, it did show the positivity and like the way that people were connected. It did come through as well. And at the end of the day, I ended up moving with the company, and most of all my friends, I'm still in contact with them today. Most of them have moved on to one, two, even three different jobs now. So in the end, it was chaotic, but we pushed through, and now everyone is better for it.
Now, let me just say this to anybody who's listening. Mercedes-Benz is an amazing company.
Mhm.
So what Michelle's highlighting is that in 2015, Mercedes-Benz was in Montville. They moved over to Atlanta. It was a business decision that they made, and that impacted a lot of employees. So obviously, she was on the ground experiencing all this. I was also an employee for Mercedes-Benz, but I was on the field level in Ohio. At the time, I was actually working for Mercedes-Benz Financial Services, and even there, they actually moved us from the financial services side back to the manufacturing side. Um, and it was not, it was very different. It was very different. But again, change is inevitable. Hey, have you heard of Felicia Rishi? She's
I have
a,
not.
yeah. So when I was getting ready for this, she did a TEDx talk, and the title is "How to Change Careers When You're Lost." And I think
Mm,
that's kind of one of the biggest things that people are I don't know. I think career change could be one of the biggest benefits that people could look at to do. Obviously, you
for
have a lot of
sure.
skills, so maybe I'm assuming you have some experience with how to help people through career change because I saw that on your blog that you have so many different great tips. So maybe we can focus on that for a little bit.
Yeah, so career change is massive. So I've like essentially done it multiple times in my life. Like I went from, being an actual television producer to kind of doing different parts of the business.
Hmm.
And migrating into digital marketing, which is not exactly the same thing. It kind of uses the same transferable skills, but it's different. And then even today, like mentoring and actually like speaking on the topic, that's very different from it. It's different, but it's not. So one of the things and the biggest tips that I tell people is you can make a career change at any time in your career, in the beginning of your career, the middle of your career, towards the end of your career, but use the transferable skills, right? Like there are, like one of the things I quote when I speak to people a lot is that no one has the level of experience, the exact experience, or the skill set that you have, right? That's what makes you unique, right? Like you can be competing for a job with three other people, but all three of you have very different skills to bring to the table. Use that if you're looking to make a career change, right? Like, so I'll give you a great example. I did this years ago where I looked back and said, okay, where do I want to go to next? Because people get afraid of this word career change. It seems like it's like a massive thing. It's not. Think about it. You've been at a job for 3, 4 years, right? You're kind of like, okay, I'm not learning anything more. Like I've kind of done it's not a challenge anymore. What's next? Right? There's always that word, what's next? Well, what's next could be a career change. It just sounds like a big, big word, but it's like, okay, I always tell people to take a look at yourself and take the time. And this is why this might be a great time for people to do it. What
Definitely.
have I liked from all the past experiences that I have? What do I do well? Right. And then combine all of that and like, what do I have interest in? What can I learn? Right. And then just start like researching. And the best research you can always do is talking to people. Like that's why I say for me, I mean, honestly, like this coffee cup literally has given me every career opportunity that I've had. And people are like, what? Obviously, I've worked hard, yes. But when you sit down with someone, like, and I'll give you a great example, Lewis. I didn't know you when you worked for Mercedes Benz. But if
Yeah,
me and you were to sit down for 30 minutes, and now I do it virtually, and I just ask you some questions about your experience, we kind of trade stories. There's a rapport, and there are things that we're both going to learn from each other, right?
definitely.
Because I don't have the experience that you have, you don't have the experience that I have. So when you start building connections like that, people start relating to you, right? You build that trust up. Well, guess what? You know other people, I know other people. We're all connected somehow. So that is how, like, I always tell people, be open minded, speak to a lot of different people, get out of your bubble, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been awarded like career opportunities in places I would have never thought I would have worked simply by having coffee with someone who said, "Oh, what you know what, Michelle? There's this opportunity at my place where I work, and I think you'd be great for it." and I've been open minded, gone for it, explore different opportunities. Some I've gone for, some I haven't, but you still learn, right? So I just think that the biggest way to answer that question of what's next is having conversations, doing your research. It's connecting with yourself first, right? Like figuring out who you are, what do you really like to do, and then doing the research online, but mostly talking to other people, because other people, we've all gone through the same thing. We all have the same questions. No one knows it all, right? So why not just take advantage of each other?
And I think that fear that people have about it, I think we is the best time to start embracing that fear, because let's face it, we're not the only ones going through. If you are going through this, you are not the only one going through that, right? And
Correct.
what I'm assuming is that's going to happen is that when the economy opens back up, there's going to be a huge bottleneck of people trying to find jobs, right? And it may not happen immediately, and it's frustrating when you're trying to apply to jobs and they're not the employer is not being responsive. That doesn't mean that you suck or that you don't have the
Mhm.
qualifications. It's just that there may be a bottleneck, right? And that bottleneck may be severe when it happens. So I think, like you said, I think the time to actually do that is now. um so maybe like this might sound way too business like, but doing a SWOT analysis on yourself, right? I
Mhm.
don't know, I
For
don't even know if
sure.
that's even beneficial, because a lot of people don't even know what that is or how to do it. But I don't know. I don't know if you have any tips for how to go ahead and figuring that's roadmap out for yourself.
Well, you know what it is, and I'll tell you something that comes up a lot. And actually,
What's
I
up?
actually spoke about this with someone that I was, helping out last year. He was a Harvard graduate, so this guy has a law degree from Harvard, right? You can't
Okay.
get, better than that in terms of, background and experience. And he had been out of a job for a while. And the thing is that, one thing that I tell a lot of people is, today in 2020, especially after this pandemic is over, you got to get rid of one thing. And this is an ego. The first
Okay.
step is stripping the ego. Meaning, what I mean by that is, I don't care. It doesn't matter what kind of education you have. Where do you come from? At the end of the day, what this whole situation is telling us, we're all equal, and by equal I mean we're not the same, but we're all on equal footing, right? We all want to do something that we love. We all want to provide for our families, right? We all want to be able to, do the things that we enjoy doing. No one is different in that way. However, we are different in what we actually want to do, what our talents are. But you have to also be humble and be open minded. I sometimes find that, as people grow in their career, they kind of lose that. I've noticed that a lot lately. They lose that point of like, wait a second, you might be a vice president today, but remember, you were once that intern.
Yeah.
You were once
Yeah.
that, lower level employee. Like, think back to like, what are some of the questions that you had in your mind? What are some of the doubts? Like, what do you wish your boss at that time would have done for you? So I always say, like, don't forget those things, because I've personally learned every day from interns, from students. I actually have a book of notes that I actually take on a consistent basis from students graduating from universities, students just starting their careers, and then people that are about to retire. Right? There's a wealth of knowledge that everybody holds, and sometimes, though, in order to uncover that, you gotta get rid of the ego. That's a
Yeah.
big roadblock today.
When you said that, I started taking some notes over here. So I was in the military for 6 years, and one of the most important things that I remember vividly as you started talking was that on week one, they start introducing you to a lot of different, very high-ranking individuals, and it's a scary thing, right? You're a recruit, 17 years old, and now you're seeing a general, you're seeing, staff sergeants or gunnery sergeants or master sergeants. And one thing that I learned is that everybody puts on their pants the same way. Everybody puts on one leg at a time. Although that individual has 4 stars, 1 star, and the reason why I'm mentioning this is because Captain Crozier. I don't know if you heard of Captain Crozier. He's the captain that just got recently fired from the U.S.
Oh
Navy,
yes,
right? So look at how his sailors and Marines that were on that ship, they love that guy because
yeah.
his ego, like you said, his ego is not didn't stand in the way. He started off as a lieutenant, somewhere behind. And
Hmm.
one thing that makes a very strong lieutenant versus a weak lieutenant in the beginning of their career is that You could have the two same individuals, like you said. One person could have come from Harvard, the other one could have come from William Patterson University or
Mhm.
Seton Hall University or whatever. Just because you came from an elite university doesn't make you better than the other person. But a lieutenant, this is something that lieutenants usually face, is that when they step into their first command, are you just going to listen to yourself, or are you going to take the resources that are with you, which are the boots on the ground that have been there so long? And I think that's what makes Captain Crozier, and what you're saying right there, that ego didn't stand in his way, which unfortunately got fired. But now he's also facing this, right? So he's,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who it is. You could be that one person that's going to be an admiral, and now he has to face a career change of some sort. So
Yeah, no, yeah, no, definitely ego is I mean, like I said, it's one of the major roadblocks. I mean, I've seen super talented good people not take advantage of certain opportunities just because they couldn't get rid of that ego. Like they weren't confident enough to kind of, break down those walls and just, we all have questions. We all can learn from each other. I don't know it all. That's why I have notebooks and notebooks of notes. That's why I talk to everyone. I'm the type of person where I meet someone everywhere I go, at the cleaners, at the coffee shop, like everywhere, literally. I actually met one of my friends on a voting line waiting to vote 2 years ago because I'm just that type of person. I'm super curious. That's why I started my career as a producer. That's why I love journalism, because I like to hear people's stories because you learn so much. And that's what I really hope that, like, this pandemic, that what comes out of it is that natural curiosity again, to learn from people and to just kind of, just be a little bit more humble and just be open and to exploring and different things, because when you do that, you might just find out, like, okay, what is the answer to what's next? You'll get that answer, you just have to do that legwork.
what about the behavior now? Because I think one of the things that we may be fearful to talk to each other at a close distance, when before it was like you said, you could just talk freely to anybody. But the behavior of people may change dramatically. It's going to take a while for people to feel comfortable having a conversation one on one or close to each other, or going to a restaurant.
You're absolutely right, but that's why you have this. You have technology, right? Like this is one of
Yep.
the new things of, like, now companies are having to realize, oh wait, I now have to run my company completely virtual now because of this. So, like, again, it's going back to that part of change. When something changes, like I've learned to, because of my exposure to so many different things at a very young age, I've learned to always address change with, what can I change about myself because this just happened? And then what new things, what do I need to get rid of? And then what are some new things that I can learn? And that's another way. Like, again, I've have the last 3 weeks, I want to say I'm up to like over a little over 100 coffee chats with people. That hasn't stopped me from connecting. I actually connect more now than I did when I would meet people at coffee chats or have a quick chat on the phone. Today there is no barrier to connecting with people. It's a quick LinkedIn message. I mean, look at you. You sent me a quick LinkedIn message. We're now talking.
There you
I,
go.
I do that every day. Other people do that every day. We just gotta, again, kind of, and this is one of the things that I understand is very hard for people that are introverts, right? Because you have to keep that in mind. Not everyone is comfortable, approaching someone or even talking to someone. So some of the things that I actually teach people are, there are certain set of questions, simple questions, that if you keep them in your mind, you can start a conversation with anyone. And that question usually leads to more conversation and more conversation. I mean, something as simple as, you know, um, when we just first started talking now, you asked me, where am I? I'm in Atlanta. What did that probe me to start doing? How did I get to Atlanta? I tell people that all the time in Atlanta. It's a very transient city. Ask people, where are they from? Because there's not a lot of people that I meet that are from here. That'll help. They'll say, I moved here because of a job. I moved here for family. And you can start, like, there are simple questions that could get a great conversation going.
I used to live in Moscow, Russia, for a
Oh,
year,
wow.
and in Sarajevo, Bosnia, for 2 years. I don't look Russian. I don't
Yeah,
look Bosnian. But one of the biggest things that when I have conversations with people, I tell them a smile goes a long way.
for
So if you
sure.
smile, that kind of just breaks any barrier that anybody would have. That
Hmm.
whether it was a person that a Russian that had a conversation with me, we all have natural assumptions, right?
Yep.
But as soon as you smile, it just breaks down any barriers. And just like you said, just ask any random question that just comes to mind. and not be afraid. I know it's like I'm an extrovert,
Yeah.
but I've seen how introverts may be able to struggle with that, like you said, right? So just finding that, I don't know, just finding out a little bit of them could lead to more conversation. And one of the graphs that I saw on your LinkedIn profile was kind of like a squiggly line up and down, left and right. That you think that your career path is going to go, just have a straight line, but in
Yeah.
reality, it may be. So I don't know. Did you create that chart, or was it somewhere else that you found it?
No, no, no. I mean, there's a gazillion versions of that chart. So I didn't create that chart, but I mean, talk about like it being so true. And you know what's crazy about that chart? That the few people that I have met that their careers have done this have gotten to a point where when they're here, they're like, what do I do now? Or they've continuously done this, but they've missed out on living their life, right? They've
Oh my
consistently
gosh,
been
yeah.
so focused on moving up that then they get to a point where they're like, wait, but this getting up here, it wasn't worth it. Like, I gave up family time, I gave up experiences, I gave up, and you know what? I don't like where I'm at right now. This doesn't drive me anymore. So it's interesting, right? Like, so it's just like, again, going back to we're all connected, we all want the same things, and sometimes I think that those squiggly lines, that's what makes you, that's what allows you to tell stories, that's what allows you to survive a pandemic that we're going through right now. Because I mean, I feel really bad for people there are people that are really struggling. I mean, I'm having conversations with people that like don't know how they're going to survive the next 3 weeks. Not even just financially, but mentally, right?
Yeah.
Because they've never had something like this happen, or it's been a long time and they forgot. And it's like when you're used to being on top sometimes and don't have those ups and downs, it doesn't help when you're faced with a challenge like this, right?
Yeah, because when you're experiencing failure, obviously
Yeah.
you experience it, you come out of that, you learn something new every single time. When you experience fear, you learn something new every single time. And the previous podcast that I recorded, I've had conversations with folks like that that have. Yesterday, as an example, I had a conversation with a guest. His name is Mishka Shulali. He was highly dependent on drugs, alcohol,
Okay.
but he figured out how to get out of that. And then he became an author, he became a writer, he became a musician, a comedian. So he's
That's
utilized
amazing.
all his failures to put himself in a good position. Had he not done that, who knows where would have been, right? So
Yeah.
it's those up and downs, like you mentioned, is I thought you created that chart, so I was like, oh, that's pretty, that was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
No, no. I mean, I know that there's a million different versions. I mean, I can say that I physically wrote that because I have written stuff like that. But no, those charts and that illustration has been existing for many, many years. A lot of different people have, because it's a reality of life, right? I think I want to say 95% of us have gone through that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There's very few people that haven't.
Now, how about your journey? I know you said you've gone through certain things in your life that has put you in the position where you are right now. Let's talk about your journey. You said you grew up in New York, or New Jersey,
New
right?
Jersey. So yeah, so I was born and raised in New Jersey,
Okay.
and I come from a big, big family. And the way that I always say it is like my mom had 7 brothers, and I'm from a Dominican family. And as you know, with Spanish families, we love parties, we love getting together, we love being social. And one of the things that is interesting was that at a very young age, because I was from a large family, coffee was a staple in the house, and that was like where everybody would come in the morning. We talk, we do the cheese mess, all the stuff, all the fun stuff that families do or whatever. But when I was in college, like I said, I was studying journalism, and I wasn't. It's funny because it not until about, I want to say, about 8 or 9 years ago did I realize what was actually happening. I would go and meet people for coffee. That was natural to me. Like I grew up with my parents taking me out to coffee to meet people and things like that. But when I was in college, I actually got an opportunity to attend a presidential election in the Dominican Republic. One of my father's
Ah,
friends was actually running for president over there.
which president was
And
that?
what's that?
Which president
Um,
was that?
Hipólito Mejia.
Okay.
Yeah. He was a president from 2000 to 2004. But in that experience, though, that was the first aha moment that I had, was because I saw, I don't know if you've been to Dominican Republic before, but a lot of like third world countries, there's a big divide between the wealthy and the poor.
Yes,
And
you can see it.
watching, yes, and watching an election though, and watching somebody be relatable to both people was actually like super fascinating for me. Like for me, I was like writing down notes because I'm like, wait a second, like how do you relate to someone who's so wealthy, right? That's giving you money, but also somebody so poor, right? Like, how do you relate to that? And that's like kind of like what got me thinking about like, wait a second, like there really is no big difference. There's not a difference in these two sets of people, right? Yes, there's money, but poor people, somebody that has wealth, they both want the same things, right? They still want to provide for their families. We all generally are connected in some way. So anyway, that experience helped me a lot into kind of like seeing a lot of things. And then in having coffee, I got my job as an assistant producer for Despierta America in New York City.
No shit.
um,
Okay.
yeah, so that was before I graduated college. Again, that was actually me having, so I got an internship through having coffee with one of my professors. He recommended me for an internship at Univision Channel 41. I did an internship there, and then having coffee with someone there recommended me for a producer position at Despierta America. So it was really interesting how that happened, and I still had not graduated from school yet. And then from there, like again, having just connecting with different people through work, I got different jobs, and just kind of like I actually ended up at Mercedes Benz through a former supervisor at Univision who recommended me for the job. So do you see what I mean? Like everything is
It's a
always
connection,
been
yeah.
and so I didn't realize it until like 6 or 7 years ago, where I was just like thinking about the what's next. What would I want to do in the future? And I always knew I wanted to write. I always knew that I wanted to get back to like what I loved about producing, which is storytelling, which is helping people. And so I just kind of like did a retrospect of like what you just said, like do like a SWOT analysis of like, okay, what am I good at? What has been different about my career? What, how do I want to help people? What is my brand? So that's another great thing too about discovering yourself, figuring out what your brand is. And you know how I did that? I literally took a list of 10 people. They were friends, former coworkers, different people that I have met throughout my life. I think I even included some family members, but I didn't want to include family because, they tend to be biased. And I wanted like people to be like, no, really tell me, and the question that I asked everyone was, give me 3 words that when you think about me as a friend, as a former coworker, what comes to mind? Like when you think of Michelle, like like if you had a problem or someone brought to you a problem, like what would be the problem that you would come to me to solve? Like, what would make you think of me? And this word connector kept coming up, like, oh, well, you just always connecting with people, or coffee. Coffee kept coming up a lot. I used to always have coffee with you, in New York City before I think. And so I started putting all that stuff together. And that's how I kind of came up with like this idea of like, wait a second, I could actually help people connect. And obviously, careers are a major, major part of people's lives. That's how I kind of came up with the idea and the concept of I could teach people how to do this.
I think that's a brilliant idea for people to actually implement right now. You could either, call somebody, FaceTime somebody, or
Yeah.
do a Zoom or text or
Yeah.
LinkedIn. But I think that's is easy, it's cost effective,
Correct.
But you just have to just dig deep and say, hey, even if you hated the person, I think you could still ask them, because I've worked with a lot of people that were great bosses, horrible bosses, but those horrible bosses, I knew where exactly they were, and people didn't like them because of their managerial style. Um,
Yeah.
but I think I'm gonna use that myself. But
Yes. No, I'm telling you, this was so eye-opening for me. And I've done it now. I want to say this is the last time I did it was 2 years ago, when I officially started like formalizing and created a curriculum to teach people how to connect. That was the last time that I did it. This was in 2018. And I'm telling you, it works like a charm, because sometimes, you know how they say like with brand, right? Jeff Bezos is infamous for this, right? He says, your brand is what people say when you walk out of the room.
that's
So
true.
I can sit here and say, hey, Lewis, I'm such a funny friend, or I'm such a funny person, right? But you might not think that. That's not my brand. My brand is, what do people think of me? What do they experience when they interact with me? So that's a good indicator of just like, telling people to be honest. And that's the important thing too. I would tell my friends, look, this is not an ego exercise. Don't sugarcoat things. Really, really tell me, like, why are you friends with me? Or what did you enjoy working with me? What are the things that I brought to the table and that you remember me by? And that's how, I got those real answers.
That's awesome. Now, Hipólito Mejia and then Despierta America, how did that shape you? What did you learn during that transition, during that process? Because you said you were still in college, right? While you
I was
were
still in college, yeah. So what I learned, I learned everything. So what my job was, I was an assistant producer, and it was literally the dream job. It was my job was to
and Despierta America.
In Despierta America, yes.
Yeah, and for whoever's listening or watching, please Google Despierta America. It's kind of like Good
It's
Morning
a
America.
Spanish version of Good Morning
Good
America.
Morning America.
Yes, but just
And
with
if
a
you,
lot more music and dancing.
yeah, exactly. If you see Good Morning
Right?
America, how happy they are. Just think about Despierta America as being a just a 3 hour show. I guess it was three
Yep.
hours. I don't know, but
Yep.
it was always dancing, fun, happiness,
Correct.
a lot of colors. And I think it's being shot in New York or Miami
No,
sometimes.
it's yeah, the studios are in Miami. So
Miami,
I
yeah,
actually was part of the New York City crew where we would
got
do
it.
so like this is what the dream part of my job was. I've always wanted to tell human interest stories. So my job was to find Latinos in New York City, in New Jersey, in the tri-state area who were doing something unique and cool. And then I would bring that up to my producer and then we'd like film it. So wait, what branch of service did you serve in?
The Marine Corps.
Okay. Do you know that I went to the Parris Island? I actually took the Despierta America for the first time ever to Parris Island, and we spent 3 days documenting the boot camp.
How? No, I didn't know that. So let's talk
Yeah.
about that.
So
I have to.
I have a blog post on the story, by the way. It's, if you see it. So basically, this is what happened. Me being as curious as I am,
A
I
blog
was a
post
newbie.
here.
It should be on my yeah. It's
All
actually
right,
one.
sorry,
No.
sorry to interrupt. I'm so excited now. So
I know.
sorry.
No, it talks about the three things that I learned about being a boot. So this is what happened. You know me, I talk to everyone. I had a personal friend who was a Marine, and he actually invited me to an event. I want to say it's the annual ball, right? That happens in Atlantic City.
Marine Corps ball, the Marine Corps ball.
Yes. So I went with him and a friend of mine who was a female who was actually thinking her boyfriend at the time was a Marine, and she was thinking of joining. We all went together. During that process, I'm talking to everybody because that's just what I do. One guy says, "Hey, Michelle, well, would you be interested?" Because I was like, the stories they were telling me of like why they joined the Marine Corps, everyone has a different reason for joining,
Oh
right?
my gosh.
Everyone, yes.
Yeah.
So he was telling me all this. I'm like, oh my God, this would be amazing to document. He goes, well, why not? And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, we'll document it. We'll bring you and the film crew and we'll document. We'll bring something up. I took it back to my team. My producer, my reporter loved it. I have pictures, which actually I think I'm going to post soon. I actually have a picture of us at the um, on Parris Island, and we got cleared. We actually were taken in. I don't want to say it's a Marine jet, but I forgot it was like it was a plane where it was it was just us with all Marines,
Okay.
and they flew us down to Parris Island, and we literally filmed and we interviewed, I mean, dozens of people, men, women. I mean, it was the most amazing experience. This happened in 2005, and we documented, and it was one of the most it was a really high rated series of programs that we aired in Despierta America in 2005.
I'm gonna have to look that up. That's pretty
You should
interesting.
definitely look it up. But that was me. I was responsible for that, and that was just simply, again, nothing crazy, just being open minded, asking questions, and being like, "Hey, would you?" And he's like, "Of course, why not?"
So
So
I
it
see
was
over
amazing.
here. Yeah, I see over here that the three things you learned. Every member of your team has a different motivation.
Yep.
Keep empathy in mind. Reassure each employee. Now, is this coming from the Marine Corps perspective, or talk to me about that? Because I
No.
think
This
these
is
are
the
pretty
people.
interesting.
No, this is actually interviewing the actual people that were training. So, for example, we
The
interviewed
recruits.
the recruits. Yes. So it was just we did a lot of interviews. I mean, we also interviewed people, Marines that were responsible. But the whole goal of the program, the whole theme was interviewing Latin American recruits in the Marine Corps to get different stories and different views.
Ah,
Yeah, so this is coming from them. Like this was like the analysis of like all the different interviews that we did. These were the important things that I took note of.
okay. So that the twist there is the okay. There was a in my platoon. I was a platoon 2105. That's what it was.
Okay.
Platoon 2105. There was 90 of us. Everybody had, like you said, a different reason for being there. And there was
Yeah.
one guy that he was bored. That's what he said. This is in 1998,
Wow.
September 1998. He said he was bored. He's like, my parents are rich. I was born into you know
Wow.
into wealth. He had a college degree, and he could have gone into to become an officer. He's like, nah, I just wanted to just become a normal enlisted. And the thing for him was that he wanted normal things to be
Yeah.
normal instead of going. He felt that going to be an officer was still being in the feeling like higher than anybody else. So he wanted to
Yeah,
start from
for
he wanted
sure.
to start from the ground and then work with his way up. Everybody had a different reason. So I think that's pretty cool, man. That you
Yeah, no, I'm
actually.
telling you, this is one of the experiences that it was like one of the most amazing experiences. And again, a simple like chat with somebody and just being interested in somebody's story and what they're and why they did something just led to like an incredible experience. I mean, it was incredible. It actually ended where we recorded the graduation.
Okay.
And it was interesting because I'll never forget this. There was a woman, we were interviewing her, and she had not seen her son. Is it 6 weeks, right? It was, oh no, 12 weeks.
Yeah, 12 weeks. Yeah.
12 weeks, okay. And basically the story was her son was from New York City, was in a gang, just he was a mess, like, basically before he enlisted. And we were with her right after the graduation, and she's looking for her son. And she's like, "Where's my son? Where's my son?" So she's asking, sorry, one of the men, and he's like, "Ma'am, he's right there." She literally went. She did not recognize her son.
It's a
She
drastic
literally
change.
I mean, the guy was like, she showed us a picture. I mean, I think he had like dreads, braids. Yeah. I mean, his hair was cut. This man was standing straight. Like it was a totally, totally different man that she went absolutely nuts. I think like we all ended up crying. I think even the cameraman ended up crying because it was just such an emotional thing to see the transformation for her. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, it was an amazing experience. That's been like one of the highlights of my career. Definitely was experiencing that.
So you were there the last 3 days before graduation. Did you get to experience any other like the training sessions that were being held?
Yes, lots of training sessions.
Like which one? Which one
Like,
was
I
your
mean,
favorite?
the ones where they immerse you in the water.
Okay.
That was like the water training. The final, what do they call it when they
Water
actually?
survival.
Yeah. Then is it 12 hours you have to spend in the wild, like a simulated?
The Crucible. The
Yes,
Crucible.
we
It's called the
experienced
Crucible.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
We did that, and then yeah, and then a lot of it just was like interviews and just observing people, like watching people eat, just the different um, um, ways that people were managing and just talking to people about their experiences when they first came in to like now that it was nearing the end, like what were the positive experiences, what shocked them. It was definitely something. What was great about the series was it was just hearing the perspectives of all the different recruits. This wasn't just like a it wasn't through the eyes of the Marines. I mean, they actually gave some input, but it was just seeing like, hey, why are you putting yourself through this? Why is this important to you? What have you learned? It was just nice, and a nice way to see how people transformed. Why are people making these type of decisions, right?
Yeah, and I think I just thought about this right now as we're talking. If we think about this pandemic that we're going through right now and the changes that are happening, the same thing happens in the military. You're basically coming from all sorts of all cities in America. Just they put you in the same location, and everybody's going through the same change, right?
Correct.
Everybody's just going and normalize and just put the same change. You get haircuts. Females obviously they don't get haircuts in the female recruits, but they have to learn how to adapt to change, right? So that adapting to change is one of the biggest things that any military folk, not just Marines, they have to learn how to pivot and adapt
Yeah.
to change in order to
No,
survive.
it was
So
interesting, yeah, and seeing how different people handle different situations, how different people view this. Some people, it was a sacrifice that they were giving for a particular reason. Other people, they were doing it because they were third in line, like their father did, their grandfather did it, their father did it. Now they were doing it. There were so many people from different areas of the country. It was just amazing, to be honest, to see it.
yeah, so your business is called Connect, right? The
Yeah.
business that you operate right now,
Yeah,
and
so I call it it's like a mentoring program because the term coaching, I mean, yes, I essentially do coach people into learning how to do different steps to connect, but I love the word mentoring because really it's I kind of use people's unique like I take people's unique talents or their unique personalities and help them in connecting using that, right? Because I kind of feel like, like I said before, we are all unique, we're all talented, we all have something to offer. How do we take what that special thing is and then use that to your advantage, right? Because you can't teach everyone to do something in the same way. We're all different. So I like to like mentor people and first learn from them, like who are they, what do they want to do, why do they do the things that they do, and then help them use like what they're good at in order to get them to that next level.
now has the pandemic impacted your business at all?
Well, no, I mean, no, in the sense that, well, actually, I shouldn't say no. No, I've had much more interest in coffee chats because I do like a lot of introductory coffee chats and things like
Okay.
that. But
Okay.
really, so I do a lot of things. I'm also a digital strategist as well. Like I love marketing and branding companies and people. So that's where like my business and actually what I do comes all together. So it's kind of been sort of like the same because I pivoted now when this pandemic started into helping more people, like doing a little bit more blogging, having one-on-one. I'm actually doing like a virtual summit. So it impacted the business where a week ago, March 24th, I was supposed to have a live event here in Atlanta, a women in business event. People were coming from London, from all different areas to come to the
Mhm.
event. And then we just had to like restructure that and make it a virtual event, which is happening in a couple of weeks. So yes, it's impacted, I think, every part of the business. It's just that, for me, I've learned to just kind of like pivot and kind of figure out what works best. And I've prepared for that most of my life. So for me,
Mhm.
it hasn't been like a drastic change. Yes, it's affected the business, but it hasn't affected, like, I've learned to be agile enough where I almost think of it mentally like it hasn't affected my business because I just have to do something different. Does that make sense?
It does. It
Like
does.
I don't look at it as like, oh my God, like this massive effect on what I'm doing and even, all the other work that I do. It's no, how do we pivot? How do we, help people? How do we just do something different?
Because I think your sweet spot on the connecting part is exactly what people need right now. So I think
Yes, for
um,
sure.
so who are those clients that you have right now, or who is your ideal client? I guess.
So right now, like I do a lot of speaking engagements is like the bulk of it, to be honest with you. I do speaking engagements like locally in Atlanta. Some of them I do and actually I was in the process of doing some for some universities in the spring, but that got that got canceled. So honestly, my ideal clients are like students and universities. So I love to speak to a lot of universities. So actually going onto campus for like a lot of fraternities, a lot of like the groups that are preparing the students for career development, and then also professionals. So I get like young professionals that'll come to me and be like, "Hey, Michelle, I need help with." Reaching out to people. I need help with, LinkedIn. That's why I wrote that blog post about the 6 questions that your LinkedIn profile should answer. That's a big one. Like I've been doing a lot of that lately, helping people with their LinkedIn profile. Because the thing is, back to what I say is when you want to connect with someone, like right now, LinkedIn is like the platform to be on, right? In order to connect professionally. There are millions and millions of people on LinkedIn. People need to know your story. What is your story? What makes Lewis
What makes you
unique?
unique? Unique.
Yes.
Yep.
So
Yep.
like use that, right? Like that about section on your LinkedIn page. I mean, as you can see from reading mine, I have everything in there. I love coffee. I love travel. I love storytelling. Like all those things help people understand, okay, where is this girl coming from? Who is she? What does she enjoy doing? Right? Because we're not just titles anymore. Like we're people. We have stories to tell. And I always tell people sometimes it's like, LinkedIn has been so very title focused and less human and people focused. Like we've got to make it more people focused so that when you do reach out to people, like there is more that you can ask from. Oh, like I have people reaching out to me every day. Oh my God, I just read your profile. I loved it. How did you go from television production into marketing? What about storytelling do you enjoy? Like people actually have questions.
Yeah. It's basically humanizing the because the first thing people are going to see is that portal, right? They're going to see who you are
Exactly.
through
Yeah,
that.
and they judge, and people judge, on that, and that's the one thing, right? We all have cell phones in our hands all day, every day. That
Yeah.
is like I tell people, your LinkedIn is your digital footprint. It's your professional dating profile, right? People, all the time. Again, every job that I've gotten has not been through applying through a portal. It has been through a direct connection that I've had with somebody or sending my resume to someone. The first thing people do, oh wait, Michelle would be a great candidate for this. Quickly, they'll look you up on LinkedIn. It's just natural.
Yeah, I forgot the article that I read, but one of the article spoke about investments, and they said
Mhm.
one of the best investments you can make is not dealing with stocks or whatever anything else that real estate. It's essentially your resume.
Yeah.
Your resume, because people that do not invest in their resumes when they start applying for jobs, or your LinkedIn profile when they start applying to jobs, that's the first thing people are going to look at. And if it doesn't read well, that's it. Your opportunity. You may be the best qualified person, but if you don't have those two things, like you said over here, what is your story? What talents do you possess? All these questions that you're presenting here have to be answered. You
Yeah,
know.
exactly. And the thing is too, what I've also noticed too that, remember, also coming from like even now, like a lot of the work that I do and stuff, remember, like and even coming out of like what's happening now with the pandemic, if you're a business owner, right? Even big corporate companies to a small company, let's say I own a restaurant, a small restaurant. When you're looking to hire someone, right? You don't you want to make sure that you make the right hire. It's very costly to hire someone and then find out 6 months later they're not the right fit or they're not the
Yeah.
right person, right, for you. So how am I gonna, you that were in risk assessment, right? Like, how am I gonna minimize that risk? A referral, reviews. That's why I talk about LinkedIn, putting reviews, asking people for recommendations, right? People want to know, why are you good? Why should I hire you, right? Why do you like this person? It's just so, in an effort to minimize that risk, because it costs time, it costs money to a company, people want to hire people that do come recommended through one of their social circles, or through someone that they've worked with before, or that's somebody that they've gotten to know. So that's why it's so important that aside from your LinkedIn profile and your resume, you get out there and start connecting with people, because people want to hire people that they trust. I always tell people, I've been witness to so many scenarios where there are two candidates going for a position, and one is way more qualified than the other, but the other will get it simply because there's a connection, because they've come recommended, because they are just better, the person feels more comfortable working with them, they trust them. All those soft skills that didn't seem to be important like 10, 15 years ago
They're
are
critical
like
now.
critical right now, because
Yeah.
people understand that.
And I think to your point, I think it's pretty important to still have that connection with people, meaning that you still want to keep in touch with people, because if you do request a
Sure.
referral later down the line, they're not going to forget about you. But later down the line, if you do request a referral, at least you started planting the seed now. Plant the seed now. That way,
Sure.
by the time you actually do need that resource, it's already there. You can tap into it.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so what other you have a lot of blogs over here, obviously, a lot of blog posts. What other great tips would you recommend for people that are not just employees but employers also? I think the other side of the fence, employers need to understand that diversity is crucial, because obviously are you going to go back into your old employees and try to rehire them, or will you try to find new ones? And having that diversity of an approach in acquiring new skills or new employees with new skills, that's going to be a big opportunity also for employers. It's not just employees, but
Yeah.
it's that balancing act. What other tips would you have for that?
Well, there's a big thing that's going to happen once, like you had referenced it before with this
What's
pandemic,
that?
was once this pandemic is over and the country's back up and running again, there is going to be a massive pool of very talented people looking for work. So it's going to be an employer's world, right? Not
Yeah,
because
employees.
there are going to be so many people looking for opportunities. That's why making connections and and fostering the connections that you already have is so critical right now. Right now is the time to do it. Now is not the time to pause. Now is not the time to kind of rest. Like, yes, use this time to pause to figure out what you want to do next. But once you figure that out, or in the process of figuring that out, reach out to your connections, foster those connections, because you and this is a mindset that I had when I was in college, and that is why I decided to do and work all these different jobs to get connections, because when I was in college, I was graduating with a journalism degree with millions of other people. After this pandemic is over, people are going to be applying for jobs that thousands and millions of other people are going to be also applying to as well. What is going to be your edge? And honestly, today your edge is that connection, is bridging that connection, because you can be fantastic. I'm sure all of us are fantastic at whatever specific thing that we do. How do people know that?
Yeah.
And just a recommendation from people is that, remember, when a big company is hiring, or a firm or anything like that, these days, no one has time to look at 800 resumes. No one has time to look at 50 resumes,
So
right? And
basically,
a lot of,
how do you stand out, right?
correct. And a lot of companies have a recruiter within the company that's responsible for obtaining, you know, uh, qualified candidates for a position. But remember, then you have the hiring manager. The hiring manager is the one that makes a decision. So it's your job to not just get through that recruiting manager, but to get to the hiring manager so that they can see you or they can vet you. So there's two different levels that you have to go through in a lot of the major companies in order to, have a solid chance at getting an opportunity. So
So
that's
let's
why
go.
making connections is critical.
So let's go back to your LinkedIn topic, right? So do you think it's smart to actually reach out to the hiring manager or anybody in the company, like in HR, on LinkedIn? Do you think that's a smart move, or do you think you should still follow the same protocols like as everybody else?
So this is what I've done. And this has worked for me. I want to say once, because all the other times there have been opportunities that have been presented itself via different connections. Again, because this is the thing. This is before I go into that. The good opportunities, and when I say the good opportunities, the opportunities that you actually want will never just be on a portal. I tell people that about 80 to 90% of the jobs that you sometimes see in a portal, they already have a name attached to them. Understand that, right?
Let's pause it. You mean on the portal on LinkedIn or just
Anywhere. Think about it. Anywhere, career builder, or anytime you see a job posted,
they already have a
there
name?
is a 90%, 80 to 90% chance. The last time I checked, it was 85%. I personally think it's more because of my experiences and the experiences that I've been through. But they have a name to it. Either a candidate's already been identified or something. Because remember, people want to hire people that they trust. They don't want, there is no time to take big chances for big jobs, right? People want to hire, and it takes, and some people, don't want to run that risk. So sometimes they might have a candidate in mind, but they still have to post the position. Again, this might be a little bit different because there might be so many more jobs now after this pandemic. But in my experience personally, it's probably better suited to find creative ways to make connections with the companies and the people that you want to make connections with.
Got it.
Personally, I have seen a posting for a position. I did my research, found the hiring manager, and did send an email to the hiring manager. I connected with them over for coffee and actually got the position. So I've done that once before, and it definitely did work.
Okay.
And there's a special technique though, because I also tell people we are all busy.
There's a right
The
way of
high
doing it and a wrong way of doing it.
and a wrong way. When you're sending a message to anyone on LinkedIn via email, be short, concise, thoughtful, and just get to the point.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want to say hi and then to let that linger because they're just gonna avoid. And I get those annoying emails consistently, like I want to help you out with the marketing or just marketing emails or just strategic emails that people just want, but they don't. Besides that, like to your point, is why would I want to waste my time with that, right? So
Correct.
I think those are valuable key parts, but because I've seen other people that I in my circle that they've tried to find a job and they've tried to connect with, but like you said, it's just how did you go about that? And
Correct.
I wish I was in a position to actually help them out because
Hmm.
I wouldn't know how to actually, which I think you just did right now with introducing that. So as far as the career dream jobs, I see you also have a post over here on how to find your dream job guide. That
Hmm.
post is how to use your dream job as a career guide. You have three things over here: deciding what your next move will be, challenging yourself in learning something new, and picking a mentor to connect with. I think you already highlighted on some of those, but what about the challenging yourself and learning something new? How can you?
Yeah, so this is what I say is so, right, when we talk about dream jobs, right? Like I was one of those few people that like I knew what I wanted to do when I was in college, right?
Yep, yep.
That has changed a number of times, right? After I got the experience. What I tell people is again back to being open-minded and challenging yourself. Think outside the box. I always tell people, what is your dream job? And they're like, well, what do you mean, Michelle? And I'm like, your dream job, meaning like if I were to give you all the money in the world right now, Lewis, I want to give you all the money in the world, right? Or $20 million. But in order to keep that $20 million, though, you got to tell me, you got to do something to give back, something that interests you. What would you want to do? And then
Mhm.
people are like, oh, and I've had people say like, it could be something, and I'll give you the most wild example. I want to open up a bar and run a bar on the beach in Costa Rica, right?
Why not?
Awesome. Okay, great, right? Well, you can't get there today, right? Exactly. I don't have the money. I don't have, I don't know anything about Costa, whatever the case. Okay. But there are certain skill sets, right? And certain things that you're going to need to learn before you can go there. Because what if you say in 10 years you do have the money and the bandwidth to go and make that happen? So this is where I say is to challenge yourself to think outside the box, put that dream career. So in case this is, I want to own a bar in Costa Rica. Every opportunity that you get from now on, right? think about the skills that you're going to need to get that dream job. So when you're reviewing a new opportunity, is it going to give me business management skills? Is it going to expose me to like how do you do finances in a business? All those skill sets that you need in order to be successful at managing that bar in Costa Rica, travel, whatever it could be. Figure out ways that like when you're reviewing opportunities, does it check that box? Doesn't give me that skills? Because that's what I did. Like I always said, okay, well, is this going to get me to point B, or what is this opportunity going to teach me? And if you're one of those lucky people that have like two opportunities that are being brought to you and you're trying to decide which one matches up, right? And I always tell people, don't get so bogged up in titles now in different things, because I know people that have director positions that make much less than someone that has a specialist position, or whatever the case may be. In today's world, be open-minded and just dynamic. And that's why I say put that dream job on your map and then map to it. And every time you have a new opportunity, think about it. Is it going to get me closer or further away to that dream job? And that's how I evaluate things.
I think that's a very, very important point to bring out, because let's just say, you do want to become a senator, or you do want to become, like you said, a bar owner,
Yeah.
right? There are a lot of other skill sets that you need to know to, number one, own that business, or
sure.
manage a political campaign. But a lot of the things that you're doing, that you have done in the past, could be of value in the future.
Exactly.
Or that you're doing now, that you will be doing in the next couple of months or years, could be of value throughout the course of your life, which ties back into that same graph that we spoke about before. The squiggly line is
Yeah.
everything is relevant, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, are you familiar with the inside the actor studio?
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to take a little pivot from the conversation, and utilize one of their strategies. So obviously, in the Inside the Actor Studio, they always ask a very random question.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a random question right now to see. So obviously, in your profession that you have right now, what other profession would you be doing, or would you want to do, if you were not doing what you're doing right now?
There is no other. That's the great thing.
So this is what it would be.
This is my dream job. Yeah.
All right, let me ask you a different question then. What is your favorite word?
My favorite word, I think it's connection. I use it every single day.
Hence the name of your business.
Yeah, connection. Yeah, because I believe that I don't believe. To me, I define success as connection, meaning it's not about money. It's not about massive influence. It's not about the like normal things that people define success. For me, I find success, whether it's my personal relationships, with my family, professionally. I always aim to build a connection with someone. If I built a connection with someone, that's what I deem successful.
When I was doing my MBA at the Ohio State University, there was a class on organizational management that we had, and one of the topics that we were discussing is just on relationships,
Yeah.
because we analyzed a lot of different leaders throughout the course of history, and some people they had a nucleus of people around them, and those people that they had around them were a very short group of people, meaning that one person may only know 10 other people, and those 10 other people may only be associate themselves with two or three. So when you look at the pool of people, it was a very strong driven folks with a lot of money, a lot of political clout, a lot of experiences. But then you have other individuals, like an actor as an example. I can't remember the guy's name right now, but he essentially did a lot of different movies. In every single movie that he did, whether it was a western, a cowboy western, whether it was it was the actor that did Batman. I can't remember his name, but
Okay.
if you look at his career, he basically did a lot of different movies that range from cowboy to Batman to whatever. But every single opportunity that he had connected him to other different individuals,
Yeah.
and those individuals. When we put this on the map, it was a big spider web of just people that knew him, kind of like the 10 degrees of separation,
Yeah.
that knew him just because of all the different experiences and connections that he has. So I think, I'll hear you loud and clear. The one word that defines you, I guess, is connection.
Yeah.
How about travel?
Travel, I love travel.
What you've been to the Dominican Republic, obviously. You've been
Yeah, I've been to Dominican Republic. I've been to, I mean, what? So I'll make it a little bit more interesting. The most favorite place that I've traveled to, and I define connection with, is London. So London is one of the places that I went to. I want to say I first went there like 2 or 3 years ago as part of a program when I was still with Mercedes Benz,
okay.
and I made so many connections there that actually that kind of like triggered in me what, to kind of expand my horizon and continue like thinking of ideas of like where do I want to be next. And coincidentally, literally 2 years almost to the day from my first trip in London, I was back there last year giving a speaking I was doing a speaking engagement on how to connect for business opportunities. So that was super
And
interesting. So yeah, of all the places that I've traveled, I do have a special heart for London because it kind of birthed some ideas, and then literally without even thinking about it or planning it, 2 years later was able to kind of like, kickstart some of those ideas there.
so you were in London proper, or were you in a different city of England?
No, no, in London. Yeah.
So how long were you in England?
Well, last year I just was there for about 4 or 5 days because I went there with my just to kind of like see, but also for a speaking engagement to
Okay.
kind of travel and take my mom. My mom had never been to London before, so I took her there, and she came, to my speaking engagement. But I was there 2 years ago for about, I think I want to say 4 or 5 days.
Okay. So what was it? One of the best places that you went to visit over there? Where you want to?
I mean, I think I don't have like a favorite. See, I'm not a person that has like a favorite part like of any city because I'm just such a curious person that I just kind of like I literally explore a city in 4 days. I go all different places. So I don't think
Okay.
I have like a favorite part. I just love just soaking in the culture and the people and the different things. Coffee for sure. Um yeah, so yeah, I don't think a favorite part. I just, it's just like a special part that the city holds for me.
What other cities or countries have you traveled to?
I've been to Germany. I've been to Paris. I've been to Italy. Yeah, like I mean, most of the Caribbean. I haven't explored South America as I've wanted to, so that's on my list as well. Like I'd love to go to Chile and different parts in the South. So that's my next target.
And throughout your travels, did you see how differently people connect with each other or communicate with each other?
Oh,
Because
for sure.
obviously,
Yeah. I think the one that's impressed me the most has been Italy because London and Paris, I mean, they're big cities, right? So there's still that hustle and bustle that you get from like a New York City, right? Um, but in Paris, I was on the southern part of Paris, and it's just kind of like people just drink their wine, they enjoy their meals. I mean, dinner's like 3 hours, where you know that's not here. They're trying to rush you out of the restaurant. There, people actually like enjoy and savoring their meal, talking to people. So that's kind of like what I enjoyed.
yeah. So France in Paris, right?
No, no, that was Italy. Italy.
Oh, Italy. Sorry, sorry.
Yeah. No, what I mentioned was that in Paris and London, it's like the hustle and bustle of New York City. It's very similar, different, but it's similar, right? Those are big cities. But in Italy, in southern Italy, there was just more of this calm, serene, like ocean, and just people just enjoying themselves.
Got it. Well, my heart goes out to everybody in Italy because obviously this pandemic has hit them hard. Well,
Or
obviously it's a global phenomenon, global issue. Hopefully your family is safe. And do you have family in the Dominican Republic as well?
yes, I do. My father lives there.
Okay, so hopefully your family's safe over there. What city
Yeah, no, they're great. He's in the capital.
okay, so
And yeah, Santo
Santo
Domingo.
Domingo,
Yeah.
Santo Domingo. Okay. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for being part of this podcast. Is there anything else that you think key takeaways that our listeners could implement today? I know you've divulged a lot of great insight, but three things that you want to leave these our listeners with.
I mean, the first thing obviously would be to connect, take advantage of this time to connect with people. The second thing would be is just be brave. Be brave in, taking an introspective look at yourself. Like, what do you want? What do you want out of your future? What don't you like of what you are today? So, definitely taking the time to do that. And the third thing that I would be is just, try to stay as um, positive as possible. Take advantage again of this opportunity to do the first two things that I mentioned, and then just take that and just have faith because again, the world is consistently changing. So thankfully, we're not going to be in this bubble that we're in for long.
How long do you think it's going to take?
I don't know, but hopefully not too long. And if it
Well,
is, it's extra time to refine your skills so that when we are out of it, you're raring to go.
positivity and optimistic. That's what I'm
Yeah.
hearing in you right now. All right, so Michelle, people can find you at Michelle, which is MiCheLLenjoli.com. All right, so you can find her on LinkedIn. And again, this is the podcast with Luis Antonio Ramirez, and I appreciate you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you
Uh,
too.